So we're going to look at it today. We're going to look at how to build the travel approval flow, how you start to build from scratch, what's the requirements. So I'll be doing it right from the beginning, and you can watch. If you have any questions along the way, you can ask me. And basically our assignment will be to create exactly what I've created in the class. Then if you see, if you don't have a tenant to do this on, you can also let me know. We have a demo tenant we created for the class. I can create you on that tenant so that you can create your flows there, right? So please, can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, I can see your
Yes,
screen.
please.
Thank you. All right. So the first thing we're going to do when you want to build, okay, so basically what's a travel approval flow? It's basically a flow that, somebody wants to travel, and I make a request, and my manager approves that request, and that I get a notification saying that my request has been approved. So that's what the travel approval flow is. Right. Now, the first thing you need to do is we have to have a data source. So if you are building a travel approval flow, we will, because this is a flow class, we're not using um we're not using Power Apps. You need an interface where your users can go to fill the form. So we'd assume that people are going to go into SharePoint directly to fill the form. So I'll come to my SharePoint site from here. Use this one I have created already. So this is a SharePoint site I have created already. So within the SharePoint site, I will come to create a new list. Are we familiar with SharePoint list or SharePoint generally?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
No,
so
I'm not.
okay, you're not. So SharePoint is um it's like an intranet. So a portal, like let me say like a website. Right? That's what SharePoint is. It's like a website. So like any other website you see. So this is what it looks like. This is just SharePoint. And what happens in SharePoint is used as a hub for information sharing for an organization, and only users who are authenticated or who are, let me say, employees of the organization can access the SharePoint intranets, right? So you can see, you use organizations can have different sites for different purposes. So for example, you may have a site for HR, and technology can have their own sites, and within that space, they start to share information around different things. Maybe something is going on, there's a new campaign, there's a new product that is out. All of that information is saved on SharePoint. And like if a communication is going out to users, they can say, oh, we're starting a new product called Textilers app. If you want to learn more about it, click here. And then people click here, and they come to this kind of SharePoint page and they read more about it. So it's also used for document management, that storing of your documents. So that's basically SharePoint on a high level. Another feature that SharePoint has is what we call the lists, SharePoint lists. So just imagine Excel. You have an Excel sheet to store vendor information. So that kind of Excel sheet can be put in SharePoint as a central location where all the vendor information can be stored there, and you don't really have to like start to share the Excel sheet or wait on someone or use hard copy. Everything can be stored there. So if I show you example of what I did, like this one, now this is a SharePoint list, and this list is where I stored team requests. So I was working on an automation where we locked the use of Microsoft Teams. So before you can create a team in Microsoft Teams, you have to make a request. So I have this SharePoint list that once the request is made from Power Apps, right, it just goes into that list. It submits to that list. So SharePoint list can also be seen as like a database, though it's not a full-fledged database, but it's a place where once a request is made, those submissions can go directly into the different columns, like this within the SharePoint lists. So for this, our travel approval flow today, what we are going to do is we're going to create the SharePoint list, which is where we want our information to go to. So today, we would allow our requesters to make their requests from within the SharePoint list. So there are different ways. You can make the request directly from here by clicking on new, and filling all these items in this my list. But we usually don't like to send users into the SharePoint list directly so that they don't mess the data that is there. So most times you have the option of either creating a Power Apps like this, either creating a Power Apps like this for them. You can see click to request, and the people start to pick. Because it looks nicer, you can make it look very good. Like you can see, I have this here and all of this here. Or you can also use Microsoft Forms for that purpose. So Microsoft Forms is Microsoft's Google Forms or like SurveyMonkey, but this is the one created by Microsoft. So that's, if you fill this form, you would also I've seen the experience of what Microsoft Forms look like. So you can also use this as your interface. And once people submit, it goes directly also into your SharePoint list, right? So for today's class, we're going to just use the SharePoint list. So as you start to advance, once you have learned Power Automate to a point, you can now start to learn, Power Apps, which can be used as that interface that submits data to SharePoint. I hope I was able to clarify a bit. Hello, for me.
I can hear you.
Yes. Was that a bit clear?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. I'm just creating a new site now for this session, and that's where I'll create my list on. So I'll come here and say new list. Now we're going to create a new list called travel request. So we say travel requests. And you can just put a description. Is to track all travels, right? So create. So we have our title column here, which is fine. The next column we are going to add is amount. So we're going to use currency for this. So we have different data types in SharePoint list. So you can see the different data types, data types are available. So you select any of these based on the input you want to receive from your users. So let me ask us, if you want to ask your users type of flights, for example, domestic, international, which data type are we going to use out of all these data types here?
Think choice.
Exactly, you use choice, So if it's something around date of travel, what are we going to use?
Date and time.
Date and time. Very good. So that's exactly what all of these things are for. So if it's something like maybe comments, or you want to take feedback, I know that the feedback is going to be very long. You use multiple line of text. The single line of text takes a maximum of 256 characters. So anything that is going beyond that, your flow can fail. I've had a flow in the past that I created, and I was using single line of text to take in the approvers' comments, and what happened is my flow was failing, and I was like, what's wrong with it? What's the matter with this flow? I didn't know that I use single line of text for comments, and people were writing an essay in the approval comment. I just thought people would just say, okay, good to go. As a techie now, we're always very brief, but business users are not like that. They're not brief. they want to explain why they are rejecting the request. So I had to now discover that, oh, it's multiple line of text I should have used. Then I went back and started to change everything to multiple line of text. So if we don't get the data type right, it can also affect our flow, our automation, right? Okay, so let me come here now. Let's take currency. Let me choose amounts. Don't know if there's naira here. Anyway, we're not all Nigerians, so let's leave let's leave it as dollar. So for the sake of the demo, amount, then let me see, what else do I want to capture? I can capture the approver's name. So I can come here and say single line of text, approver, also approver's name. And also decide to take the name, and I can also decide to capture the approver's comments here. Okay, so this must be, or when you come to more options, what you see here sometimes is required field, required this information, this column to contain information. So when you want some fields to be required, you can turn this, toggle this on. And what it means that the users will not be able to submit their request except they are filled in that information. So let's click on save. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to jump into Power Automate. So I'll go to Flow, Microsoft. Or you can come to your ribbon here and click on Power Automate. Are the two ways of getting to it. So from here, I come to my flows and I want to create a new flow, a new automated cloud flow, right? And I call this travel request underscore approval. I don't know, the name is totally up to you, but you have to be sure that whatever name you are using is something that you can relate to the next time you come to your flows, right? So it's okay if you just have one or two flows. By the time you start having 10, 15, 20 flows, you need to be able to know that, oh, okay, this is what this flow does. But if you just give a random name that you or any other person can understand, maybe when you're not even around, you've gone on leave and somebody needs to work on the flow, people start wondering, what's the name of the flow that that Foyin created, So that's that. So we're going to use this name. Then we want the flow to start when an item is created in SharePoint, right? So in Power Automate, we have what we call triggers. This was explained in the last class. Triggers are the things that start off your flow, right? So for benefit of those of us that are not in the last class, let me just open another tab here. So you can have different triggers. So let me see. Just skip this for now. So your flow must always start with a trigger, which means what do you want to kick off this flow? So your flow is just there, and something needs to tell it start, basically. Because if you don't tell it start, it won't start. So that thing that's going to tell it to start is what we call a trigger. So there are different trigger options that we have, and based on all the connectors that Power Automate has, we have various trigger options available to us. So if you want to use a SharePoint trigger, you can click on SharePoint. If it's forms, you can click on forms. When a response is submitted, what do you want to do? If it's SharePoint, when an item is created or modified, and all of these other options are there. So these are all triggers. Then we also have what we call actions. So triggers and actions. Actions is when this trigger happens, when a new item is created in SharePoint, what do you want to happen next? That's an action. All right, so let's jump back to our flow. So when an item is created, in our SharePoint list, I come here, try to pick my site. Does it show up? No, it doesn't. If you don't see your site in the drop down, just enter a custom value, then come to SharePoint and select your site name. Your site name stops here. Right, this is my site name. I created a SharePoint site called Flow Sessions. So this is where it stops in the URL. So you copy this and you paste it here. Then what's the list name? Is travel request. It automatically picks all the SharePoint lists that are in that site location. So you can come here and say travel request. All right. Then, so when an item is created, what do I want to happen? I want to start an approval. So I will say approval. Can also use the search. I want to start and wait for an approval. Then under start and wait for an approval. Sorry, please, are you with me?
Yes.
Just checking. Okay, great. All right, great. So under start and wait for an approval, I can say there are different options here, right? So let me quickly explain. You have the first one. It says approve or reject. Everyone must approve. So we have some approval processes where maybe 3 people have to say yes before that process can continue. So that's when you say everybody must approve. And then you put in the email addresses of all those people that must approve. If all of them don't say yes, it doesn't move, right? If 2 of them say yes and 1 person says no, that approval is going to go to the rejected condition because all of them did not approve, right? So we can use first to respond. First to respond is we have a pool of 5 people. Once 1 person responds, it's okay for the process to continue. So that's first to respond. Then wait for all responses is also the same as everyone must approve. But sometimes people may say, I don't like rejects. What is rejects? The word is too harsh. Business users, they're very particular about such things. They can say, no, emotionally, how can you tell someone that your request was rejected? Can we use a more subtle word like maybe declined or not approved? But by default, if you use any of these first 2, the options that Microsoft gives you is approve and reject. So you now start to use these custom responses. So in the custom responses, you can state, you can concur. Some people say, no, the person is not approving. She's just a concurrer. Why are you saying approve? He doesn't have the right to approve. And you're like, is it not the same thing? But okay, no problem. You want concur, we'll give you concur. So you can use these options for that. So this first one means everyone, just the same thing as this is what is here, but you can customize your response. And this second one is first to respond, which is just 1 person is fine and you can customize your response. Okay, so let's do first to respond. So what's our title? We can say travel request. Travel request logged by. Now we have what we call dynamic content. Please, I can't see the Teams interface. So if I'm going too fast or anything, please feel free to just let me try and open it my second screen. Okay, just raise your hand or stop me. So we can say request logged by the name of the person that logged it. So we have what we call dynamic content. And dynamic content comes from all of the previous actions and triggers that you have in your flow. They come by default, so you don't need to worry about how did they get there. Now, because we're using when an item is created and we're pulling from a SharePoint list, by default, SharePoint brings out all of this, dynamic content for us here. So you can pick the one you want. Okay, so what's the dynamic content? It's basically saying that whatever is in any of these fields at that time is what you should pick. So for example, if I say travel request logged by and I come here and I say created by, there's a default column in SharePoint called created by. So, and I say created by, you see there are different created by, but what I want is a display name. So I come here and say created by display name. It means that as a new request is coming in, the system is going to look at who is the person that put in that request and automatically pick the display name of this particular request that is running at the moment. So that's why it's called dynamic, because it's not static. Static means this is it. It doesn't change. Like all of my text here is static. It will always be the same. But when we talk about dynamic content, it means it picks whatever is in that container per time. So if Fumi makes a request and submits it, when this request is going to the approver, it's going to pick Fumi's name. If Fumi submitted, it's going to pick Fumi's name. So that's how this works, and that's what dynamic content means. For a long time, I didn't understand that when I started Power. I'm like, what is this dynamic content? So that's really what it is. All right. So travel assigned to. Let me assign to myself. Don't have too many accounts on this tenant, right? So what's the details? The details of this request, you can just come here and say an item. I'm coming. You can put 1 second link to item here. So details, I can say hello approver. So assuming I had a column in my SharePoint list with my manager's name, I will have been able to say hello manager, and then I'll come here and say new request logged by when created. I can even say new request, then I can pick the title of the request. New request logged by phone. Then I have that there and that. So we can put a link to the item here. So what that does is that takes the manager to the SharePoint item, and you can see all other information that was entered. So I can here to view request detail. Right. Okay. All right. So all of this is fine for now. All right. So that's then the next thing I want to add is a condition, right? So I want to add a condition. I want to say what happens. So if the manager says approve, if the outcome of that approval process. So what this means is, when this start and wait for approval goes out to the manager, maybe by email, it has two buttons, approve and reject. So this outcome means whatever the person picks, whether approve or reject, if it's equals to approve, then outcome is equals to approve. So if yes, that means if my outcome is equals to approve, what do I want to happen? I want to send an email. So I'll come here and say, I'll just say email, and I'll use the Office 365 mail, send mail, filter by Office 365, send an email, and I can say send an email to the person who logged the request. So sometimes if you click here and your dynamic content doesn't come up, you can use these two arrows to pull it out. So you can see, so they filtered all the possible emails that you can have. So created by email, and you can see your request has been approved. And you can see hello. So now we can pick the person's name. Hello, come here, created by display name. Hello, created by display name. Please be informed request has been applied. So now we can pick the name of the person that approved it, because the person's name has been automatically logged. So I'll just pick a approval responses approval name. So this will give us the name of the person that approved it. So has been approved by, you are getting this applied to each because, we said first to respond. So it means that you can have 5 people in that responses. So it automatically just creates this loop, but don't worry about it. And many things. You can also include the comments. So you can then say approved by with comments. Come here and search for comments. Responses, comments. Full stop. All right. So it's not funny actually. So if there is a team in charge of the travel, you can see maybe regards travel decks in the email. All right. Any questions so far? Are we good? Is it making sense?
Yes, it's making sense.
Okay, great. So yeah, then the other thing we want to do is we want to update our SharePoint list. Remember we had a place in our SharePoint list where we said approvers name and approvers comments. So we want to know from the back end who approved this request and what did the person say, So we can now come here. So I'm going to stick within this loop, add an action, and I'll say update item, update SharePoint. So update item. Where is it? Update item. Then it will say where. So I'll come here. My site showing is still not showing. Enter custom value. Then I'll paste my site location the way I showed us. List name, travel request, ID. Once you click on ID, what this means is it's trying to pick the particular item you're working on. So you usually have one ID per time. So when an item is created, that's the ID we have now. So what this means is the update you're going to make to SharePoint list is the updates at the time when this item was created. As you start to build more complex flows, you may get into situations where you see 3-4 IDs in this place. So you can see, like if I was to do something else again later on in my flow, you can see when an item is created, you see an ID, you see update item, you see another ID like that, but just pick ID for now. So the title is the same title. I'm not changing the title. So just come here and say when an item is created, still retain the title, So I'm not bothered about this. The reason why it's asking for title is because it's a compulsory field. So if you have other compulsory fields, you may need to pick the dynamic contents of it. So let's assume that amount was a compulsory field. All I'll just do is search for amounts here and say whatever amount that the person entered when he was creating this request is what you should retain here. Don't change it. But if you leave it blank, like I'm doing now, it automatically fill it with the item that the person had created. It won't alter it. So approver's name. So I come here and I say approver. Then responses approval name. Then I come here. What comment did the person give? Search for comments, responses, comments comes in here. Okay, that's fine. So this is done. Great. I've not saved my flow. Let me save it. All right. Now we want to create a similar thing here for rejection. Right. So we come here. The first thing we do is send an email. So now I want to send an email and tell the person that, your request has been rejected. So I send an email to created by email. The subject is your request, your travel request. You can also do this, Control C and Control V. So has been rejected. Then body, actually, you can do this too. So all I'm pressing on my system after highlighting is Control C. That's to copy. Copy all the dynamic fields. Yeah, Flow is intelligent. So, but you have to be careful too with copy and paste. I've worked with some guys, and copy and paste was just embarrassing us during demos because they won't change all the things properly. So you can see, please inform that the request has been approved. It's not, this one's supposed to be rejected. So say, why is the request being approved when we said reject? Oh, sorry, you won't be able to tell your customer. It's a copy and paste that caught us. So whenever you're copying and pasting, you need to be careful, right? So, but however, I didn't create the loop. So I might need to enter this one again. So let me see. Comments. Exactly. So when I copied and pasted, it didn't give me this loop, which is not good. So I had to take out those two variable dynamic content and put them back. So has been rejected by. So whether approved or reject, you still search by approval. Responses approval name. There's no responses rejected rejector name. They are all an approver. So they can decide to approve or reject, but it's still approval. Okay, so we have these two here. Then the next thing we want to do is want to update the item also. So we come here, search for SharePoint, then search for updates item, and then our address, is it showing? Is not. Enter custom value. Oops, sorry. Put something else over it. So come back here, copy, come here, no, not here, here, paste the site address, list name, travel request, ID, yeah, then title is the same, title, so nothing has changed. Then approver's name, come here, approver, responses approver's name, then comments, responses, comments. Okay. All right. So we're done. Another habit you need to have is naming your controls properly. So now this is send email V1, V2. This is send email V22. This should actually be renamed to send approval mail. And this one, come here, rename it rejection mail. This is important, especially when your flow starts to get very complex. You will need to reference something. You may need to reference some things within these functions. And if you've not named them properly, when you come to dynamic contents, let me show you now. When you come to dynamic contents here, and you want to reference something above, you won't know which one it is. So all of these headings you see here, when an item is created, start and wait for an approval, comes from here. When an item is created, start and wait for an approval, So we have to name it properly. Let's say we have 5 or 6 approvals in this flow, right? Then you want to be getting approvals comments. So when you search for approvals comments here, you will see almost 6 approvals comments or 5 based on the number of approvals that you have had previously. Now we are seeing only 1 because we have only 1. So but if you have 2, you have 3, you'll be saying start for approval, start for approval 1, have for approval 2. You won't know which is which, So you should also actually come here and say maybe something like managers or manager approval, right? So if I come back here and I do this, you see manager approval. So let's say you add 5 or 6 of it, you can you can rename them. So you can see manager approval, departmental head approval, and CFO approval. So when you want to pick the comments, you are picking the correct comments. Not that you are coming to pick the comments of the manager approval. Meanwhile, that comment was made by the departmental head, you know. So that's just on another note. All right, so this is done. So let's test our flow. Do you have any questions before we test? All right, so I come back to my SharePoint and I say new item. So we're saying travel to, let's say, UK, and what's the amount? I say it's going to cost me 4,000. You know, I leave these ones blank. So this is also one of the reasons why it's good to build something like a Power App, because then we can hide these two fields and your users don't need to see it. Because now, if I'm a user, I'm confused. What am I supposed to put here and here? I don't know. But meanwhile, these fields are auto-populated based on the flow. So yeah, so we leave these two blank and we click on save. So my request has been created now. So I come to my flow. Let's see what's happening here. If you step back, you can see the runs. Oh, did I turn it on? Yeah, I think it's on. Let me check. Yeah. So it's on. Whenever it's on, it's highlighted here. If it's off, you see grayed out in this way. All right, so let's see. So we can refresh to get the status. So when you refresh, you already see that, oh, a new flow was created and is running. So I can see, okay, how far has my flow gone? So meanwhile, let me check my mail. Because the first thing is really the approval mail. So yeah, I've received the approval email saying, so this is my mail now. Let's make it big. So it says request logged by, can you see? These are dynamic content here for your largely below, which is the name of the person that created the item, you know, and you can see this is the details. So you can see hello, new request travel to, so this is the title, you know. So new request travel. So when you start testing, you see, oh, I should have put a space here. You can go back to your flow and adjust it. Oh, I should have put a dash here. So it says new requests, then hyphen, travel to UK, logged by largely below. Oh, another space is needed here. Okay, we got. So let me approve and say requests good to go. Submit. So that's done. Then what's supposed to happen next is, right? Okay. Rejected. What's going on? Copy and paste has gotten me. Let's check what is happening. You went to the rejected. Why? Wait. Okay. I think it's my condition. So let's see what's going on. So like I said, you can come here and see your runs. So the run is completed and completed successfully. So you can come here and actually see the details of what happened in the run. So let me see. Okay. Then you can come here. This was false. Okay. Approve. Okay, so let's check then. Let's edit it and see. You can make all the minor corrections here. Just put it there. Now this approvals box uses formatting that is called markdown. So if you have some time doing it, you can look up markdown. So markdown enables you to do things like if you wanted to make something bold, say I wanted to make these regards bold, I will have to do something like this. To make it bold, think with this space. Whenever this is coming next, it will come as bold. So those kind of formatting, because you can't see any formatting here at all. So it's markdown language that this box uses to do its formatting, this approval. So let's see what's going on. I didn't put any value here. That's strange. Okay, let me see. If outcome is equals to approve. Okay, so let's save again. And let's test. So you can also test. Once you have a successful run, you can keep testing again with that run. So let me test again. Okay. All right, let's see. So we can see this is the dash I added is here. And say, okay, submit. So now it's fine. I didn't put an outcome there. So your request has been approved, right? So hello, please inform that your request has been approved with the approved by Fuyonlajide below with the comments okay, regards travel decks. So let's go to our SharePoint list. If I refresh this, you can see that it shows my name, approval's name and comments was also passed into the list, right? So this brings us to the end of our lesson today. Hope you found it a bit interesting and hope the content wasn't too much. So do we have any questions? Do we have any questions based on what we have learned today? Travel request app.
Okay, hi, friend.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, please, you mentioned how to get the live recording. Please, can you explain how we can get it again? I didn't get.
You didn't get that. Okay, all
Yes.
right. Let me stop this.